Imagine the most glamorous woman you've ever seen on screen. The silk gown, the diamonds, that smile that could launch 1,000 ships. Now imagine standing close enough to catch her scent, and instead of perfume, you're hit with a wall of sweat so sour it makes your eyes water, breath so foul it could strip paint, hair so greasy it looks wet. Behind the golden age of Hollywood, and right through to today's red carpets, some of the most worshipped actresses in history shared a secret no studio publicity department ever dared to print. They were absolutely filthy. Not forgot to shower once filthy. We're talking weeks without soap, underwear worn inside out and backwards, teeth that hadn't met a brush in years, and bathrooms that became biohazard zones. These aren't rumors whispered by jealous rivals. These are facts buried in biographies, confirmed by co-stars, and in some cases boasted about by the stars themselves. In the next few minutes, you're going to find out which silver screen goddess left her waist in the toilet because flushing was unladylike, which Oscar winner ate her own scalp crust, and which modern A-lister's home smells like a diaper pail that exploded. By the time you finish watching, you'll never look at old Hollywood the same way again. The stench is real, and it's about to hit you right in the face. Let's start with the most iconic blonde who ever lived, and the filth she left behind. The camera loved her. The world fell at her feet. But up close, Marilyn Monroe was a hygiene apocalypse disguised as a goddess. She avoided bathing with the same determination she brought to seducing the camera. A full shower was an event that rarely happened. Instead, she stood at the sink and gave herself what she called a sponge bath, using the exact same sponge for months. That sponge was never cleaned, never replaced. It grew black mold and enough bacteria to make a microbiologist faint, yet Marilyn pressed it into her skin day after day, convinced she was fresh. She never wore deodorant either. She believed the chemicals would clog her pores, so her armpits were left to broadcast their natural bouquet to the world. Her husband Arthur Miller once wrote poetically that she smelled like a wild rose garden, but what he really meant was that she smelled like a barn after a thunderstorm. Her beautiful platinum hair was another tragedy. She'd show up on set with roots so greasy the hair department had to pack them with dry shampoo, creating a paste that hardened on her scalp. Under her flawless manicured nails lived colonies of bacteria because she never cleaned underneath them. Then there was the bathroom habit that would make anyone gag. Marilyn refused to flush the toilet after doing her business. She thought the sound was unladylike, so she simply left whatever was in the bowl for the next person to find. Her husband Joe DiMaggio learned the hard way, discovering unpleasant surprises multiple times. And her bed? She slept on the same sheets for months, the fabric stained brown with sweat, makeup, and bodily fluids. She called that foul nest her sanctuary. On the morning of August 4, 1962, her lifeless body was found in that same unwashed bed, wearing a nightgown that hadn't been changed in weeks. The world mourned a legend, but up close, the odor was unbearable. What the cameras couldn't capture was the real Marilyn, a woman who died as she lived, surrounded by filth. But as tragic as her story is, it pales in comparison to the rainbow-voiced star who was found in an even more horrifying state, a woman whose dressing room made stage hands vomit. Judy Garland sang Over the Rainbow with a voice that could heal souls, but behind the curtain, she was rotting from the inside out. Her addiction to pills and alcohol turned basic self-care into an impossible task. She went weeks without a shower. The smell that clung to her body was so aggressive that co-stars begged directors to intervene, but Judy just laughed and said, "I'm an artist. Artists smell." Her teeth became a horror show. Stained yellow from cigarettes and coffee, riddled with cavities, they never saw a toothbrush. Instead, she gargled whiskey, convinced the burn meant it was working. Her breath could knock a buzzard off a meat wagon. Stage costumes became permanent second skins. She wore the same sweat-soaked dress for an entire tour, pointing to the dark, crusty stain under the arm and calling it her lucky mark. Her stockings weren't changed for a full week, and the odor drifting from her dressing room was so foul that at least one stage hand quit on the spot. Then there was the toilet. Like another doomed icon, Judy refused to flush after a bowel movement, claiming the noise embarrassed her. Cast and crew learned to never follow her into a bathroom. On June 22, 1969, her body was discovered in a London hotel. The coroner noted her unwashed state, her nightgown unchanged for 2 weeks. The woman who gave the world its most hopeful song died in a cloud of neglect so thick you could almost see it. But if you think addiction alone destroys hygiene, Wait until you meet the rebellious intellect who was dragged kicking and screaming into a bathtub because she believed soap was a tool of the patriarchy. Frances Farmer didn't just neglect her body, she waged war against hygiene itself. Brilliant, defiant, and deeply troubled, she considered bathing a monumental waste of time. During her 1930s heyday, she wore the same dress for a solid week. No washing, no spot cleaning, nothing. Her armpits became a biological weapon so potent it could clear a soundstage in seconds. Co-stars complained constantly, but Frances just threw her head back and laughed, wild-eyed and unapologetic. She rejected deodorant completely. She refused daily showers. To her, the natural smell of a human body was honest and real, while soap was a tool of oppression designed by a controlling patriarchy. When she was forcibly institutionalized in 1943, her hygiene collapsed into something nearly inhuman. Orderlies had to physically drag her into baths while she screamed, bit, and fought. Years of neglect left her with painful, oozing skin infections, and her teeth rotted into black stumps, every single molar a cavity. After her release, she lived alone in a small apartment that she never cleaned once. Neighbors reported a stench of rotting garbage leaking from under her door. She died of cancer in 1970. Her body was found in a bed whose sheets had turned brown for months, maybe years, of accumulated filth. Frances Farmer proved that rebellion, stripped of all romance, smells absolutely terrible. And speaking of fierce rebels, the legendary actress with the death stare eyes was just as hostile toward water, but she paired her stench with a cigarette habit that created an odor all its own. Bette Davis could kill a man with a single glare, but her real superpower was clearing a room with her scent. She hated bathing with a deep and stubborn passion. One bath a week, and even that single soak required desperate begging from her assistants. Bette truly believed that water weakened the immune system, so she limited contact with it to a washcloth. That washcloth, however, was never laundered. It lived in her bathroom for months, turning from gray to black to a sickly green. She wiped her body with it daily, smearing bacteria across her skin in the name of spot cleaning. Add her chain smoking to the mix, and the result was an odor so unique that it defied description. Part stale sweat, part rancid tobacco, entirely nauseating. Her underwear routine was equally vile. She wore the same pair for 3 days, inside out on day 2, backwards on day 3, and only retired on day 4. Joan Crawford once snarled that Bette smelled like a dead raccoon wrapped in an ashtray. Bette laughed, genuinely unbothered. In her final years, a massive stroke worsened everything. She stopped bathing entirely for the last 6 months of her life. Nurses entered her room wearing masks and gloves. The star of 100 films died in a fog of her own making, proving that even legendary talent can't mask legendary filth. The irony is that her great rival Joan Crawford was equally disgusting, but for completely opposite reasons, a woman whose house was sterile and whose body was a sewer. Joan Crawford obsessed over a spotless home, scrubbing floors herself and inspecting closets with white gloves. But the cleanliness she demanded of her mansion never extended to her own skin. She rarely showered. Instead, she gave herself a quick sponge bath at the sink every 3 days, using month after month the same sponge she never replaced. That sponge was a bacterial playground, and she rubbed it all over her body. Her hair was even worse. Joan didn't use shampoo. She poured vinegar over her head, leaving her smelling like a salad that had turned. She never washed her hands after using the bathroom, believing that a star of her caliber simply didn't get dirty. Co-stars refused to shake her hand. Then there was the breath, a legendary wall of rot caused by advanced gum disease she refused to treat. She popped strong mints to cover it, creating a nauseating mint and decay fusion that made clothes UPS a hazard. Her signature shoulder pads absorbed decades of sweat without ever being cleaned, turning yellow and stiff, radiating death. Joan Crawford's entire existence was a contradiction, a woman who would fire a maid for a speck of dust, yet lived inside a body that was a walking biohazard. When she died in 1977, the funeral home reportedly had to use industrial-strength perfume just to make the viewing bearable. But the woman Frank Sinatra adored made Joan look like a neat freak because Ava Gardner's wild animal scent was so raw that stray dogs followed her home. Ava Gardner was so breathtakingly beautiful that men risked everything for her. What they risked their noses for was another matter. She bathed once a week, and when she was done, she didn't drain the tub. She let her dog climb into the same gray, lukewarm water. Even the dog refused. Ava never wore deodorant, preferring what she called her natural scent. Gregory Peck once said she smelled like a wild animal, and meant it as a compliment, but the truth was that her aroma wilted fresh flowers. She never washed her face before bed, sleeping in a full face of makeup night after night. Her pillowcases turned brown and stiff, and she didn't change them for months because, as she put it, fresh sheets were for hotels. After eating fried chicken, a favorite indulgence, she'd wipe her greasy hands directly onto her dress, then wear that same dress for weeks, the grease stains attracting flies. In her later years, her London flat descended into such squalor that cleaners refused to enter without protective suits. Yet even Ava's feral musk couldn't compete with the dancing goddess, whose Alzheimer's turned her own body into a prison of filth so profound that her daughter had to physically force her into a shower. Hedy Lamarr's mind helped invent the technology behind Wi-Fi, but her attitude toward bathing was stuck in the dark ages. She took 1 bath per month. 1. She genuinely believed that washing stripped away her natural magnetism and sexual power, so she'd layer on expensive French perfumes to mask the accumulating stench. The combination of month-old sweat and heavy perfume created a chemical weapon that drifted from her home into the yards of her Beverly Hills neighbors, who actually filed complaints. Her famous dark hair went 6 weeks between shampoos, held in place by so much styling product that it glued the dirt and oil into a greasy helmet. Her dental care was just as primitive. She never flossed, and instead used a sewing pin to pick food from her teeth, the same pin she used for mending clothes, never sterilized, causing her gums to bleed constantly. In her later years, as mental decline set in, she stopped bathing completely, wore the same dress for months, and was banned from local shops because of the overwhelming odor. She died in 2000 at 85, and her son later revealed she hadn't bathed in the final 2 years of her life. From technological genius to human health hazard, Hedy's story is a plunge into pure neglect. But the original blonde bombshell took danger to another level. She washed her hair with gasoline and died of a toxic buildup that a dirty body may have accelerated. Lupe Valles, the Mexican Spitfire, burned with a passion that lit up the screen and a stench that emptied every room she left. Bathing was a once-a-week event, and even then she used only cold water for 30 seconds. No soap, no washcloth, because she thought soap was for poor people who couldn't afford their own natural oils. Her body odor was so powerful that stray dogs followed her down Hollywood Boulevard. Dental care? None. She chewed mint gum that fooled no one, her mouth a sewer pipe with multiple black cavities. When one tooth became unbearable, she didn't see a dentist. She grabbed a pair of pliers from her kitchen drawer, yanked the tooth out herself, and didn't even numb the pain. Her underwear was treated as disposable. She owned 10 pairs, wore each for 7 days straight, then threw it in the trash and bought new ones. That got expensive fast. In 1944, she died by suicide, overdosing on sleeping pills. Her body was discovered in a silk nightgown she'd worn for 2 solid weeks. The Mexican Spitfire died dirty and alone, but her story is a mere prelude to the peekaboo blonde whose schizophrenia made bathing utterly terrifying, and who ended her life homeless, her room so foul that hotel managers begged her to leave. Veronica Lake's peekaboo hair made her a pin-up sensation, but mental illness turned her own body into a prison she couldn't escape. Schizophrenia made the sensation of water unbearable, so she washed her body maybe once a month. That famous golden curtain of hair received even less attention. She'd blast it with dry shampoo until the powder formed a thick paste on her scalp. When the paste hardened, she picked it off with her fingernails and flicked the pieces onto the floor. She didn't own a toothbrush, rubbing dry baking soda on her teeth with her finger until her gums burned. Deodorant was a foreign object. In her later years, Veronica spiraled into homelessness, drifting between cheap hotels. She stopped bathing entirely. Her room reeked so badly that one hotel manager after another asked her to leave. She'd simply move to the next, the pattern repeating like a curse. In 1973, her body was found in a bed that hadn't seen a washing machine in months. The coroner specifically noted her extreme body odor. The woman whose hair once drove fans wild died in a cloud of suffering and stench. But the woman who ate her own scalp crust takes filth to an unimaginable new level, a fact witnessed by a horrified production assistant on a major film set. Shelley Winters won 2 Oscars, but her legacy includes a fact so revolting it defies belief. She refused deodorant, calling it a capitalist plot, so she powdered her armpits with baby powder. That powder mixed with sweat into a thick, sticky paste that glued itself to her clothes, which she then wore for a full week, without washing. Her hair was washed once a month. By week 3, her scalp developed a yellow crust. And then this is documented. She peeled off pieces of that crust and ate them. A production assistant witnessed the act and nearly vomited. Shelley had a peculiar bathroom conviction, too. She never flushed, believing in extreme water conservation. Guests had to flush for her, and her co-star in the Poseidon Adventure said the dressing room smelled like an open sewer. She laughed it off, declaring, "Real women have real smells." Real women also have real bacteria, and when she died in 2006, her nursing homeroom allegedly required a hazmat team. That is not an exaggeration. The haunting face of Laura was also drowning, but in depression so deep that she went weeks without a shower, her hair a matted nest, and her husband comparing her scent to a wet basement. Britney Spears dominated pop music, but her personal hygiene became a public horror story. Former bodyguards described how she'd go days without a shower, sleeping in the sweat-soaked outfit she performed in, and waking up to wear it again, sometimes for an entire week. Her hair went unwashed for weeks, the dry shampoo piling up into a white, greasy paste that gave her scalp a painful rash. In a documentary, she admitted she sometimes forgets to brush her teeth for 3 days straight. Paparazzi photos captured the yellow plaque. Her breath in close conversation became legendary for all the wrong reasons. She'd eat fast food with unwashed hands, wipe them on her clothes, and touch her face, causing acne she blamed on the cameras. The nadir came in 2007 when, amid a very public breakdown, she shaved her head, not as a fashion statement, but because her hair was so matted from months of accumulated hairspray and sweat that no brush could penetrate. Even today, the habits linger. The princess of pop is the undisputed queen of stink. Yet a billion-dollar fashion mogul shocked the world when she revealed she wipes her teeth with her shirt and bathes her children in her leftover dirty bathwater. Shailene Woodley preaches a back-to-nature philosophy that has taken her hygiene to places even the earth might reject. She doesn't use shampoo at all, just a water rinse once a month. Her hair is a perpetual grease slick, which she calls natural and beautiful, forcing her stylist to deploy industrial-strength dry shampoo just to make her red carpet ready. Flossing, she insists, is a lie invented by dentists, so she carries a special feather in her pocket and picks her teeth with it. That same feather has been in her pocket for 3 years, never cleaned, accumulating bacteria from her mouth and the world. Deodorant is a crystal rock that does nothing, leaving her with the full bouquet of a week-long hiking trip. Her face gets smeared with Manuka honey, left to sit for an hour absorbing dirt, sweat, and dead skin, and then she licks it off with her own tongue, swallowing the grime and calling it a probiotic. That is self-cannibalism of filth. The Black Swan star's admission might be less crunchy, but equally gag-inducing. She only soaps 3 body parts, and her entire family lives in a soap-free home that probably smells like a petting zoo. Mila Kunis dropped a bombshell so revolting that a live talk show audience gasped and gagged in unison. She doesn't wash her whole body with soap. Only 3 areas get the privilege: her armpits, her butt, and her feet. Everything else, arms, legs, chest, gets a splash of water, and nothing more. She fears soap dries out her skin, so the Kunis-Kutcher household, including their young children, is a soap-free zone. Their home almost certainly smells like a petting zoo on a warm day. Her hair gets washed once a week, by day 5 becoming a grease bomb hidden under hats that absorb the oil and are never cleaned. For deodorant, she uses a useless salt crystal, resulting in a Jim Bag-in-a hot car aroma she happily labels natural. She wants no chemicals on her body, just natural bacteria feasting freely. Mila's revelation is a masterclass in proudly owned stench, but Megan Fox's domestic filth takes the concept of natural habitat to a whole new level, where unflushed toilets are a recurring discovery and sticky furniture is just part of the decor. Megan Fox is frequently named the most beautiful woman in the world, yet by her own admission, she is a horrible person to live with. She forgets to flush the toilet. Her boyfriend, Machine Gun Kelly, has had to check after her multiple times and has found unflushed waste floating in the bowl. He's complained she still forgets. Showers happen every 3 days, and in between she uses baby wipes on important areas, tossing them into a bathroom trash can that fills up for weeks, unemptied, making her home smell like a diaper pail that exploded. Her bedsheets go unchanged for months, stained with sweat, makeup, and body oils. She calls this her natural habitat. After eating messy foods, she wipes her fingers on the furniture, so her couch and counters are permanently sticky. She notices none of it, claiming she has better things to think about. Megan Fox is a stunning, self-confessed pig who owns her filth without apology. Yet America's sweetheart takes long-term neglect to an art form, using the same pillowcase for an entire year until it turns brown with oil and dead skin, while her natural scent philosophy left George Clooney scrambling for a polite way to say she smells like old cheese. Cameron Diaz holds the crown for the dirtiest woman in Hollywood, a title she has earned through decades of deliberate, unapologetic neglect. She does not wear deodorant, claiming it causes breast cancer despite zero scientific proof. Her armpits broadcast their full, raw perfume to the world. She has never washed her face with soap in her adult life. She wipes off makeup with a dry towel, leaving behind layers of old product, dead skin, and grime that she calls a protective barrier against aging. That barrier is a crust. Showers happen every 4 days, her hair propped up by dry shampoo that builds into a thick paste which she picks out with her fingernails and wipes on her unwashed jeans. Those jeans, worn for months, get cleaned by being sealed in a bag and frozen, a process that preserves the odor so that when they thaw, the stench hits twice as hard. Her feet never touch socks, her shoes are black inside with accumulated filth, and the overall effect, according to those who've been close, is a dumpster behind a cheese factory on a scorching summer day. Cameron Diaz is rich, beautiful, and utterly, deliberately filthy. She stands atop a mountain of dirty laundry as the undisputed queen. Next time you see a glamorous film, take a deep breath and be grateful you're not in the same room. Because beauty is only skin deep. Beneath that, it's armpits, vinegar, unflushed toilets, and a complete rejection of soap. Hollywood's golden glow has a very dark, very smelly underbelly.